When Barbara and I were writing this book, one of the main purposes is to help people realize that they are multidimensional and to also realize that they're having a human experience.
Quite a number of people who've come to me for regression work have found in the regressions that they were a particular type of extraterrestrial in past lives. In fact, one woman who did quite a number of regressions with me with an abducted human man. And so she was one of the beings standing at the table doing the healing, and they were emphasizing a method that they called healing the energy code point. That was a wonderful example of somebody who had had a number of different lifetimes as various types of extraterrestrials.
And then also talk about timelines, which is one of my favorite topics because, we've got our personal timeline, which is our individual timeline based on the choices that we are making. But then that feeds into a collective timeline and that collective consciousness. And then we've got our linear timelines like past, present, and future. The thing that I think that we're all experiencing right now is that convergent timeline where all of these different timelines are beginning to merge into one.
If we could sum it all up, it's that they are here to raise the consciousness of humanity. And they do that in many, many ways. They all say very similar things about their missions, their purpose, and they emphasize that we are all one. All of us, not just all of us humans and all of us life on Earth, but all of the other kinds of life forms out there in the whole cosmos. We are all one.
Today, we are joined with the infamous barbaralamb and also Sheila Seppi. We're so lucky to have you both join us today. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. And I know that you both are debuting your new book that you co-authored titled Cosmic Convergence. So congratulations for that. We are so excited for that, and we can't wait to talk about that with you today.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Great,
Absolutely.
great. Well, Barbara, I know that we've had you a couple of times as a guest, so thank you so much for returning as another guest with us so that we can talk with you about your new book. And I know a lot of people already know who you are, but just in case there happens to be that one person that hasn't heard of your name before, if you can share just a brief little update about your background, and then we'll go ahead and let Sheila share about her background as well.
Okay, well, I have been a long time psychotherapist since 1976. And in 1984, I became involved in training for being a past life regression therapist. And in 1991, doing the regression work, people started coming to me to find out about encounters that they have had with extraterrestrial beings. And that developed over the years, a couple of thousand people at least that I have regressed for extraterrestrial encounters. And then in that group, there have been people who've come to really wonder mostly about what their own purpose in life is, sensing that they had a particular reason for being here, a mission, some kind of service. So that got me into a lot of the work that Sheila and I are talking about in our book, Cosmic Convergence. So during those years of work, including now, I'm still doing it, I have regressed people who are walk-ins, as Sheila is, and people who are starseeds, and people who are hybrids. So when Sheila and I collaborated on this book, it just seemed to be a natural fit. She has all the theory. It's incredible what she knows than anybody I've ever come across in my life. And then I had some of the practical examples, case studies of people who are walk-ins, starseeds, and hybrids.
Well, this sounds like a perfect collaboration between you both as far as your experience and your backgrounds. And Sheila, I would just love to hear from you a little bit more about your background as well. As Barbara just mentioned, you are what's considered to be a walk-in. So I guess for anyone that's listening, in case they have not heard the term walk-in before or are familiar with what that is, if you could kind of start by sharing with us what exactly is a walk-in, and then maybe share a little bit more about your background with us as well.
Sure. So there are many different types of walk-ins, which I'll get into in just a moment. But basically, the traditional term for a walk-in is when one soul leaves and another soul comes in. So it's kind of a soul swap, if you will, except for the soul that is vacating the body actually goes on to serve whatever their next step with their next adventure is. And the new soul will come in and assume life just as if the other soul was still there. And so for me, I can honestly tell you, had this experience not happened to me, I wouldn't have believed such a thing possible because I was not raised that way. I was raised, I was very traditionally Christian. I'd never read a metaphysical book. I had absolutely no foundational knowledge about anything related to the soul outside of what I was taught in the church. But I was a very, very sick person. And in 1999, by the time I was 38, I had already been diagnosed with bone cancer, brain tumors, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I used to walk with a cane. I had erythema nodosum. I had the beginning of multiple sclerosis and RA. And I mean, honestly, I don't know if there's anything else that my body could have taken at that time. Now, this was over a 20-year period. However, my body was extremely depleted, and I went to bed that way. And it felt to me like it was around 7 o'clock in the morning, but it was as if someone had reached down, grabbed me by the hair of the head, and pulled me bolt right up in bed. And then it was like lightning ran through my body. Then I was in white space. And I don't know how long I was in white space, but I know I was out of pain. I was very peaceful. It's what a lot of near-death experiencers describe as their white space. And I had never really considered, I mean, maybe I am a near-death experiencer, but all I know is I was in this white space. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting in bed and my peripheral vision starts coming in and then my frontal vision. And as I'm sitting there looking around the room, it's kind of like, well, first off, why am I sitting up in the bed? What just happened? But everything was the same, but everything felt different. And I didn't know just how different that different was. But as I got up and I started moving around the room and I walked by my mirror, I caught my reflection. And I remember stopping and just staring at myself for the longest time. I was looking at my hair and my teeth and my eyes. And, it was like I was looking at myself out of someone else's eyes. And I didn't understand how true that really was for a long time. But as I began to move throughout that morning, all of a sudden I had past life memories. And you have to understand, I did not believe in past lives at all. And people have said, "Oh, have you read this great book by Shirley MacLaine, Out on a Limb?" And I'm like, "No, and I don't want to. I don't believe in past lives. That's the biggest cop out I've ever heard." How naive was I? However, or silly, one of the two. But I had never heard of past lives. I also had all of this universal knowledge that I've been able to still retain a lot of that, but I didn't understand it at the time. And then I had all these healing methods and modalities that started flooding my mind that I'd never studied. So that was, my first inkling that there was something really weird going on. And then I all of a sudden was clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. All the clairs were just wide open. I was seeing people, hearing people. I was freaking out because I didn't know what was going on. And literally over the course of the next few days, I really determined that I was having a psychotic break because I had studied just enough psychology to be able to start diagnosing myself. So I thought, well, maybe I'm schizophrenic. Maybe I'm having paranoid delusions. Maybe I'm having a dissociative disorder, because the scariest thing about all of it is I didn't have all of my memories intact. I knew who my children were. I had this immense love for them. I had a few memories about them. I had an immense love for my parents. That was it. And I was married. So within 3 months, needless to say, I'd left that marriage. And within that 3 months, everything about me had changed. My personality, the foods that I ate, the music I listened to, and nobody recognized me. And everybody thought, when I tried to share my story, they were like, you can't be telling people that. And then, especially after I left my husband, they're like, if you keep talking like that, you might have your children taken away. So I just started being quiet and not sharing that story. But I did talk to a few people that I trusted, and still nobody knew what was going on. They're like, yeah, that's interesting. Needless to say, I lost all of my friends. I didn't remember my family, so it really didn't matter. I didn't have these close relationships with people, but I guess it was another 3 months. So now 6 months has passed. I took a new job in a different state, and I found my first spiritual teacher because, when this was all happening, we didn't have, I'm sure the internet was there, but it wasn't something that we used regularly. So I'm flipping through the phone directory, trying to figure out what type of amenities and services are there for the kids, what's the name of all the schools, all of that. And I turned the page, and it was almost like this light shone on this one. It was an advertisement. It was about a business size card advertisement in the back of the phone directory for spiritual counseling. And boy, did that have my name all over it. First, it's like, okay, nobody knows me here yet. I can go to this counselor. I can get a little pill. I can pop it. Because remember, I was still in that Western medicine model. Get my pill, pop it. Everything will go back to exactly the way it was. But that couldn't have been further from the truth, because actually this lady was of Hopi lineage, and she ended up introducing me to the concept of a walk-in, because she was very, very familiar with walk-in. She herself was a walk-in who came in at the age of 5 through a severe accident. And so over time, working with her, I began to be able to accept the fact that I could be a walk-in. And even though I accepted it, it didn't mean a lot to me. I didn't know what to do with it. My path really hadn't unfolded for me yet. And so over the next several years, I began to work on, clearing up the behavior patterns, clearing up cellular memories, doing some ancestral healing. And most important, my teacher had also introduced me, because she was Hopi, she had introduced me to the Native American concepts of shamanism. And once I met my first spiritual guide, which I did not know was a member of my collective, but when I met my first spiritual guide, then everything started to make sense, because I could do shamanic journey to the upper world, to the middle world. I can be here, I could be there, I could astral travel, I could do this, I could do that, all at will, and learn at the same time what a walk-in was. Because one of the things that concerned for me was, oh my gosh, am I a body snatcher? And it's like, absolutely not. There's pre-birth planning that was in place. So this was all preordained, that these things would happen at an appointed time. The illnesses that the body had experienced was the avenue of exit for the old soul, to where I could come in as a new soul. And as I did, I actually came in from a collective of beings. And so I am still fully connected with them. And I'm just kind of like the boots on the ground here now. And so they shared information with me to get me to where I am today, including the writing of this book.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that information and your story, because I think there's probably people who are listening right now who may feel like they're in that same moment that you were just describing and wondering, what is going on? What is going on with me? Why do I feel this way? And this potentially could be a reason why, right? So thank you again for sharing that. I just want to go back to the walk-in time period for you that you just mentioned, as far as when it first started happening. Did you have any memories of your prior life? I know you said you could feel the love for your family and for your children, but did you have actual memories, like, of your children growing up? Or is it just that that whole life is just erased, and as you come in as a new soul, you're basically starting from that point forward?
It was basically erased, but it was a temporary erasing. Over time, I have been, I'm going to say, granted some of the information from that lifetime. Now, I kept asking my guys, I want more memories. I want more memories. And they're like, no, you don't. They're not yours. You don't need to clutter anything up. Well, they started, I kept on and kept on and kept on. I'm like, I need to know. I need to know, addicted to that outcome. So it's like, you got to tell me. You got to tell me. So they did tell me some things. And I'm like, well, I didn't want those memories. Give me some, good memories. And they're like,
Only the good ones, please.
That's right. But I wasn't specific, but I was asking why a certain person was responding to me the way that they did, because I could not wrap my brain around it. And so when they gave those memories to me, I'm like, I wish I didn't have them, because they slowed down, I think, my progress for about 6 months until I could really, understand, have the forgiveness, have the compassion, and move through it. It's like, oh, okay, well, there you go. That's probably one of the main reasons that I got sick and blah, blah, blah. So I was I'm very poignant when I ask my questions now. I need to know this detail only, please. And still, a lot of times they don't give it to me. But I have had a few more memories of my children, a little bit more about, growing up and that kind of thing, which I think, is really helpful because it gives me a context. When I go back and visit family, my mother thought that I had Alzheimer's because I couldn't remember anyone. And she wanted me to go to the doctor. And of course, I had to explain to her. I explained to my dad right before my first book came out that I was a walk in. And they both take it just kind of like with a grain of salt. And it's like, okay, well, they pat me on the head like they've patted me on the head before. And it's like, honey, it's okay. You're what they call psychic, but we love you. So it's kind of one of those situations where they just accept me and life goes on. But it's really helpful to have some of those memories and remembrances of some of the people. So as we're sitting around the table talking, I at least know who they're talking about.
That's going to be, I'm guessing, a little painful for the people around you too. Is that correct? Because they've almost lost somebody, and you're this different person. So how have you, I know you said that your parents have been really, pretty good about it. How have your children been, and has that bridge been, connected since you've, learned about being a walk-in?
Well, fortunately, my children were young. They were 3, 6, and 12 when this happened. Now, for the 12-year-old, she saw miraculous changes that she could not understand until later. I told her that I was a walk-in. She's like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But the younger two, they were thrilled, because you have to remember, I was a very sick person. And that person that they knew as their mother played with them maybe a minute or two and had to lay down on the couch and play the rest of the time from the couch. So now they had a mom that could get up, and we could go do things, and we could go outside and play, and we could run and go to the park and go swimming. They loved it. And so for them, life really turned on, and they started having, much more joy in their life and a much better relationship. So for the kids, it was great.
And Barbara, this
yeah.
must not be new news for you. I know you've experienced and had plenty of people that you've probably worked with over the years So when you met Sheila, was it just like, oh yeah, that's pretty normal?
Well, yes, when I met Sheila, I had already uh, worked with some clients who were walk-ins. I think maybe 3 or 4 before I met Sheila. So when I met her, I just thought, oh, good. I'm getting to know another walk-in, because to me, it's absolutely fascinating. And the people that I knew before her, I liked very much. I mean, they were here really to give service in the world, and they were going about that in their own unique way, having made the great adjustment, of course, coming into a human life. And yeah, I was thrilled to meet Sheila and to learn about her walk-in experience.
And I have a question that actually just came to mind, Sheila, as you were sharing your story. So you said you were very unhealthy up
Mhm.
until a certain point, and then once this walk-in experience took place, you obviously you must have overcome those health challenges. So two questions: was that a journey to overcome the health challenges, or were you miraculously healed? And then also that begs the question, is it the soul that is attached to the body that creates any trauma or illness in the body? Because if you what came in as a new soul and then you became healed, does that mean somebody who currently is a soul in a body that is ill can heal themselves? Does that make sense,
Yeah,
the question I'm
it,
asking?
it does. And I really appreciate that because it opens up a whole different kind of conversation, which I'll share in just a moment. But to answer your question, yes, I was instantaneously healed. And when I went back to the doctors, they basically just said, oh, good, our medicine has worked. Now, looking at it in hindsight, I was guided, guarded, and protected, because if I had had a doctor worth their salt, they would have been doing all kinds, oh, well, now we need to check your blood levels, and we need more MRIs, and we need more brain scans, and how did this work? And, or at least that's what I would do as a doctor, but they didn't. Goodness. So when I first came in, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a part of a collective. Just and it, the soul basically dripped in little bits at a time, because the person that I was when I first entered into the body was of Arcturian energy, because the soul had been Arcturian, and there was already a framework within the spiritual bodies that would allow for this new energy to come in without frying the biology or the neurology of the body. And as the body healed, I was able to bring more and more energy in. Now, you also have to realize the soul itself is part of the source energy. And so we're all source, we all carry that aspect. And yes, as a walk in, if you want to say, I was fresh off the boat. So I had all this new energy that I was bringing in, that body just sucked right up and healed instantaneously. Okay. But all of us carry that same kind of energy. Now I have moved from that Arcturian essence, which I still call in from time to time, but I operate more in that Andromedan energy, which is more the intellectual, spiritual teacher type energy. The Arcturian, when it came in, was more about rebuilding, working with that DNA, repatterning, helping me to get things up and moving. Okay. Both being very high spiritual essence beings, not one better than the other. They just have different energy sets that they carry. And so, yes, I believe that. Now, let me preface this first. If it is in our life path that we are to experience a certain thing, we're going to experience it. And it doesn't matter what type of meditation, what type of prayer, what type of medicine that you take, you are destined to walk this path. But if you have an illness and it's not within your path to experience that, then yes, you can well, maybe not instantaneously, but you can heal yourself. You most certainly can, because you are source energy. When Barbara and I were writing this book, one of the main purposes is to help people realize that they are multidimensional, and to also realize that they're having a human experience. period. If you want to look at this vessel that we're in, it's more like our spacesuit for planet Earth, because we've had other experiences. We may have been angelic beings. We may have been extraterrestrial beings. Who knows what we have been? Because we are part of that source energy, our experiences just continue and continue and continue, because we want to grow.
Yeah, that quite a number of people who've come to me for regression work have found in the regressions that they were a particular type of extraterrestrial in past lives. In fact, one woman who did quite a number of regressions with me, she found herself as one being on a planet and didn't like the consciousness, the focus of that group of beings. So in her next lifetime, she reincarnated as a different kind of extraterrestrial beings on a different planet. And then subsequently, we went through about 3 more lifetimes in which each one she had been a different type of extraterrestrial on a different planet. And in the last extraterrestrial lifetime that she did, which was her most recent lifetime, she learned about healing modalities. She was being taught healing by her fellow beings. It came up that she was doing healing with an abducted human man. And so she was one of the beings standing around the table doing the healing. And they were emphasizing a method that they called healing the energy code point. Well, before we got to that regression, that last one that we did, she had left her corporate business job. She was really climbing the ladder very successfully in a big corporation and would have continued to have a good career with that. But she had, not knowing about this extraterrestrial lifetime and learning about healing, she had suddenly become extremely interested in being an energy healer. So she had left her job by the time she came to me for regressions and was already doing healing. And that was back in the 1990s. We did this work together. She's still doing full-time healing in a healing clinic. So that's just really great. But that was a wonderful example of somebody who had had a number of different lifetimes as various types of extraterrestrials before coming in to be a human in this lifetime.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those stories. They're always so fascinating. And I know you just mentioned there, and also Sheila, you had mentioned with your experience, some things that changed in those people's lives, in your life, that signaled you in a way that this experience took place. What are some other symptoms or signals that people can look for in their life if they're wondering, this may be what I'm experiencing, but I'm not quite sure? Like, what are some other triggers or signals that you've heard other people share about, or your own experience that you could share?
Well, I'd like for Barbara to talk about the hybrid, because they're just a little bit different, I think, than the walk-ins and the starseeds, because a lot of times when a starseed awakens or a walk-in understands that they are a walk-in, the signs and the symptoms, if you will, are very, very similar. Just like with me, all of a sudden they may have a career change. They may change their status in marriage. They may have cravings for different foods. Their entire beingness may change. All of a sudden they start wanting and have a calling to read metaphysical things, or they want to go outside and just stare up at the stars. And many star seeds say that they have such an ache, such a longing for home, but they're like, well, I am home. I don't know why am I feeling this way? And I know I have felt that way some too. So walk-ins and star seeds really have a lot in common, including that all of a sudden the clairs can turn on. Clairsentience, claircognizant, everything can just turn on with no explanation. And it's because of this awakening energy. So even like with the star seed, in my case where I healed, when a star seed awakens, most of the time what happens, it'll kick in gear their gifts. And so if you wake up and all of a sudden you have all these gifts, or you have this a strong intuition, or sometimes they have a deep spiritual awareness. I know I had a lot of unusual dreams, and star seeds will talk about having unusual dreams or a fascination with like space and the stars, or all of a sudden they start, I just feel different, or something's changed in me. But one of the main things I think is this very strong sense of mission, because with me everything in my life is driven by the mission. Thank goodness I have a husband and children that are very supportive of that. And they know, they say, oh, here she comes, get out of the way. We gotta, she's going to go do whatever it is she's got to go do, and they're very supportive of that, because, for me, that's what this entire life is about, is my mission. And I know many, many star seeds feel the same way.
Well, I would like to say about the star seeds too. It seems to me that as I have continued in this regression therapy work, that more and more people have been coming to me who are star seeds. Now, they don't put the word to it, they don't call themselves star seeds, but in working with them, it comes out more and more that, oh, they must be a star seed. So they have, well, all three of these groups, walk-ins, star seeds, and hybrids, have a lot in common, and some differences too. The star seeds are very intuitive. They have that wondering about space, looking up at this sky, often feeling like their real home is out there somehow, even though their parents assure them that their home is here with them. But they have a lot of these psychic abilities and so forth. And sometimes they have unusual dreams, or just kind of like memories or almost visions of something else, some other place, some other realm. And they have lots of synchronicities, and they have spiritual practices that they do usually. It could be a whole range of different spiritual practices, sometimes more shamanic, sometimes more ancient practices. Anyway, a whole variety of spiritual practices that these star seeds have. Some of them just sort of make it up on their own, or that is, discover it on their own. But the star seeds do not have the genetics in their bodies that the hybrids have. So I'm going to switch to talking about the hybrids. The hybrids have many, many of these characteristics that the walk-ins and star seeds have. And yet they actually have been given some genetics from extraterrestrials. And with all the hybrids I know, they have genetics from not just one species of extraterrestrials, but of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, depending on the hybrid, genetics from that many different species of extraterrestrials. But in all cases, hybrids, starseeds, walk-ins, that they are here for a real purpose. They each have a sense of mission. It's a strong sense. So very often a person will come to me and they don't really know why they want a regression. They just know that they need to find out more about themselves. And they always say, I know that I'm here for a reason, for a purpose, for a mission. And I want to be sure that I'm on that mission, that I'm really doing it. Because a lot of times these people come to me for regression when they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s or even 60s, and they definitely want to get on with it if they're not already doing it. And if they're already doing their mission, which they can find out in the regression, uh, they want to know what more they can do. Are they doing it fully, completely enough? Or is there some other aspect that they need to add to their work to really complete the mission? So basically, all three of these categories are here totally for good. And the beings that they come from or have connection with, one way or another, or who were those beings in previous lifetimes, those beings, as far as we can see, are completely benevolent, completely loving of humans, loving of the earth, and they really want to help. So, in the case of the hybrids, the beings who gave them their genetics would really like to be able to come here and do this work themselves, but they can't because they're different physiologies, different dimensions in many cases, and they just would not survive here. So, because they cannot come here, but they would like to see the work done here that they would like to do to help humanity and help the earth, that's why they create the hybrids. So the hybrids will be born here and live their entire lives here and do the service that the beings would really like to be able to do. So it's really a wonderful system as far as I can see. And the hybrids are hybridized in two basic ways. One is that eggs are taken from the human mother and sperm taken from the human father and taken by the other beings, the extraterrestrials, and they're combined together. I picture it like in a little petri dish of some sort. They mix it together with their genetics, and then very often they will implant that little embryo into the human mother to gestate for a couple of months, and then they will take that back. If it's going to be a hybrid who will be living on the ship, they'll take that little embryo out and gestate it in a tank on the ship. But for the hybrids who are here, they will let that gestation happen full term so that that little embryo gets to develop into a fetus and is born here on Earth from the Earth Mother in the way that we all are born. And so that hybrid, right from the very beginning of life here on Earth, is living here completely. So anybody would think that, oh, of course, that's a human. They wouldn't question it until maybe they learn a little bit more about that hybrid. And that hybrid, from a very early age, will have intuitive and psychic abilities and ability to send healing energy to others. Often these hybrid children will be found healing a little wounded animal or a little bird or another child or a parent. I've had those kinds of cases come up in my work. And they also feel different than everybody because they have all these special abilities. They see auras, they run energy. They're very sensitive to frequencies and energies here on Earth. And Other people they know don't seem to be sensitive about the frequencies, but they are. In many cases, it's really difficult for them because of the extraterrestrial genetics. And anyway, they grow up to give wonderful services. They have a sense that they're here for a purpose and a mission. And basically, if we could sum it all up, it's that they are here to raise the consciousness of humanity. And they do that in many, many ways, teaching, webinars, seminars, podcasts, in-person meetings, in-person counseling, lectures in big lecture halls, writing books, writing articles. So they're really doing what they can to raise the consciousness of humanity and also to help humanity to know more about these benevolent extraterrestrial beings. So a lot of them, well, all of the hybrids whom I have known, particularly the ones that are written by Miguel Mendonça and myself in the book Meet the Hybrids, they all say very similar things about their missions, their purpose, and they emphasize that we are all one. All of us, not just all of us humans and all of us life on Earth, but all of the other kinds of life forms out there in the whole cosmos. We are all one. So it's a wonderful perspective, goes very, very much along with the starseeds and the walk-ins. All three types are here with such a benevolent, helpful mission. And yet, if you met them in a meeting or on the street or wherever, you would see a regular looking human person. There's nothing freaky about any of them. Look at Sheila as a wonderful example, just a wonderful, attractive person. And that's true of all of them, just normal, regular people who do happen to have these special characteristics. And it's all for the good. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I actually had a question for you about the star seeds, because we oftentimes hear star seed and indigo children kind of put in the same category. And I know we had, obviously, Mary Rodwell very well, and Dolores Cannon, you all were good friends. And Dolores has always talked about the waves of souls that are coming in. And
Yeah.
so my question is, what age bracket would you say a star seed would be in? Because it always seems like they're identified as children. And I know that the new human, as Mary likes to call it, is coming in, as we say, fully loaded with all of the clairs opened up already. But what about us older folks? Do we have any special abilities, or can any of us be considered star seeds, or is that really just for the younger people?
Oh, no, it's for all ages, definitely. I mean, there are star kids, and they have the same qualities, characteristics, abilities as these star seed adults, but they're all the same. So I think these star kids grow up to be star seeds, and star seeds, again, of course, begin at a very young age being a star seed. So it's all the same. There's the same type of wonderful being.
Yeah, and I would like to mention too, in our book, we have a chapter dedicated, one to the walk-ins, one to star seeds, one to the hybrids. And in the star seed section, we do talk about the different types of souls, or where they may be coming from. And of course, the indigo children are believed to possess this innate spiritual gift, and they too have a very strong purpose. So, indigos are more, I think that they're the ones that really came here first to usher in this new age of consciousness and transformation. And they have their gifts online. And as we go come forward now, the new children that are coming in, whereas the indigos had to be the way showers of the time, have set the pace. So when these children come in, it's great for them to be able to, oh yeah, I'm coming in with this concept. I remember this. We're going to help build this. We're going to, blah, blah, blah. And it would not be possible for the crystalline and rainbow children had it not been for the indigo children.
Right. They really, really paved the way.
Yes.
And they were kind of the movers and the shakers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was bringing me to my next question. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Barbara.
Not that the others are not movers and shakers, but the indigos were more, let's go get them,
Right.
really kind of feisty, stirring up things. And the crystals and the rainbows children are really doing their very important part, but not quite in that style.
And you talk about this in your book, is that correct?
Yes.
All these star seeds.
Absolutely.
And I understand you also have more sections in this book, which sounds absolutely lovely, to both the advanced like Tara in all of this information and the intermediate beginner like myself. Like, it's a must read because you also talk about dimensions. Yes.
Right. I do. And, I start the book out with that because for me, one of the whole reasons that I wanted to write this was so that people understood that they're multidimensional beings and everything that encompasses, and to really give them the skill set to be able to understand what that means. And so for me, everything that I write about has to come from my perception or the things that have been shown to me from my collective. And so dimensions to me are just different perceptions of reality. And let's say you jump, right now we're in the 3D. This is where form takes shape and where humanity begins to populate this particular thought process. It's like, oh yeah, we're all human. We all see each other. Okay, great. And that 4D is where a lot of people say that we're operating. And this is the perception of where time begins to become more ethereal, but it's also about that astral realm. And within that astral realm, even Dolores Cannon talked about those 3 different realms within the astral. And so you've got that first layer, which is the closest to Earth, that second layer where all the halls of learning, the Akasha records, everything, the schools of learning, that's where that's located. Then you've got that third realm, which is paradise or heaven. But you've got a lot more after that. Okay. So we talk about that in the book as well. Then I talk about densities, because densities themselves is the space in which everything vibrates at a different frequency. And so that helps us to be able to, talk about not only the physicality, but also the way that our consciousness evolves. And then I also talk about the harmonic universe, which to me is the container in which our dimensions and densities are held. Then I go on to talk about the planes of existence. Now, in the planes of existence, we go from the physical, which everything is matter or, it's governed by the laws of this planet, up to the monadic plane, which is the highest level existence, which is the realm where divine and all plans for all universes, all of anything that is created goes to. And then also talk about timelines, which is one of my favorite topics because, we've got our personal timeline, which is our individual timeline based on the choices that we are making. But then that feeds into a collective timeline and that collective consciousness. And then we've got our linear timelines like past, present, and future. But then we have our divergent timelines, which can branch off from our primary timeline to create alternative sequences of events. And then the thing that I think that we're all experiencing right now is that convergent timeline, where all of these different timelines are beginning to merge into one. And I think that that's where we have a lot of people who are coming to us from, they have different thoughts or different memories, such as the Mandela effect. So, a lot of people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison. But then a lot of people remember he came out. He was very active, and then he died that way. And there's something with the Bernstein Bears. I mean, there's example after example. But this, to me, is where these timelines are beginning to merge. Then we talk about different kinds of realities and alternative universes. And then I go into like the holographic form of the body, the holographic grid, and what makes that up, and the aura, and all of our various spiritual bodies, and the chakras and the meridians. And then my healing team, Uma, Ra, and Sina, which are Arcturian, Andromedan, and angelic, gave me a healing technique called soul reconnection technique, where you go into the various layers of the holographic grid and you begin to clear these timelines. You begin to clear ancestral imprints. You begin to clear, sometimes they'll look like little nicks, like you get a pick in your sweater. They'll look like a little pick or something. And so I give the basics of these, all of this information in there, including the ley lines. And the reason I want to do that is so that we can see that we are so much more than we've been told that we are. Then I even talk about the ascension process, because to me, we all began with source, and then source has this etheric, obviously we have the fabric of the universe, but within there are the templates of creation and the blueprints of creation. We talk a little bit about that, and then how you take one of those little blueprints, which is for humanity, and then we create a master oversoul from which all the oversouls come from. And then we have our families, and we have our soul groups, and then we have our individual, and then we have our multidimensional experiences, which my group, my collective, has explained as this fist is our oversoul. Then all of these little fingers are these multidimensional experiences. But each of those fingers also represents what's called the Shantias Khan. And within the Shantias Khan, we have all the components that we need for this lifetime, all of our choice points, all of our decisions. We have our birth plan. We have all the spiritual body components. We have our, what I call the higher self strand. And then we also have the soul energy, which is once that higher self becomes denser and denser and attaches to the physical form, becomes the soul or the personality of this lifetime. So we talk about all of those things. So by the time we get to talking about walk-ins and starseeds and hybrids, and then Barbara brings in these beautiful stories of examples of people that she has regressed. I mean, this is a textbook you got to carry in your purse, ladies.
It seems like it. It seems like it. It seems like I need to run out and buy this right now. I feel like
you can get it on Amazon right now.
Yes.
Is it like this thick? Because everything you just covered was a lot.
I know it is. And look at, can you see this?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. It is actually.
Oh, yeah, actually, it's not too bad. It's 221 pages that you will just not be able to let down.
You sound like it.
That's a bang for your buck.
You'll be up all night.
That's a great bang for your buck. That's worth it. I feel like I just went to university.
Yeah. Well, you do get, you get a lot of concepts, but they're broken down in digestible bites that really make sense. And I'm so grateful, that my collective, that's one of the things, they give me information, but they break it down so we can have these kind of conversations. And everybody's like, well, of course I knew that. Of course, that makes sense. But it's just a book of remembering what you already know.
Sure.
Like we could spend an hour on every single topic you just referenced easily.
Oh, right.
Right. Yeah, we could. And, it's been such an honor to do this book with Barbara because, she's just a plethora of knowledge and it's such real stuff. Everybody's like, I need a hypnotherapy session. Call Barbara Lamb. You call Barbara Lamb. Call Barbara Lamb because, in this industry, I mean, I really think that, Barbara, you are the cream of the crop, because you've
Oh,
had such diverse experience, and it's real.
Mhm.
You know, you're
Yeah.
hearing this from other individuals and their perspectives.
these
You
are
know, whereas when
real
I'm writing, yeah,
real
yeah,
people with real experiences, and it's wonderful to be able to go to that deeper level so they can learn things that they wouldn't with their ordinary conscious mind. You know, they find out all kinds of things that they really appreciate knowing. Yeah. And Sheila, she is like nobody I have ever known, in the sense that not only that she's a walk-in, but just the sense that she knows so incredibly much,
mhm.
and she is so effective in getting information out to people. And she's written things. She gives conferences. Uh, she's writing. She is just doing so much. It's just absolutely amazing. And she's a very
Absolutely.
I'm going to
precious
give you
block.
a Marvel name. It's going to be the Cosmic Wonder Woman.
Yes, that's what you are.
The cosmic duo.
I accept that.
Yes, yes.
Good. Yay.
Yeah, it's all
I love
I've
it.
had to
I
learn
love
it,
it.
you know. But it comes easy. It really does. Like with Canva and the graphic artist, you know, I mean, I can do all of our promotion stuff because it's just fun. You know, thank goodness they bring things to me that really fuel my passion. And so, you know, one time I told him, I'm like, you know, one lifetime here is just not enough. This is not
Oh,
acceptable.
that's funny, because I feel like it's more than enough.
Oh, I find it so fun.
That is so,
Well,
so
what
cool.
would you have said if we asked you that before your walk-in experience?
I would have said, get me out of here as
No.
Right.
quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the cool thing in knowing is that we're souls having this experience. And
Mhm.
if we can rise above and look at the mundaneness or the problems or the frustrations and just realize, oh, what am I learning from this? Or, oh, maybe I could actually drop into gratitude for that person that's triggering me because they're helping me to heal. And
Yes,
so
Yeah.
we start to shift our perspectives. That shifts us into these higher dimensional realms. But the trick is staying there. So, you know, if we can hold that energy, that high frequency energy, and we all hold it at the same time, miraculous things happen. People
ooh,
are all the time asking me, oh, when is the ascension happening? When is it coming? It's like, well, when we as a human species decide it's time, that's when it'll be here because we're
Sheila, I think
creating.
you psychically tapped into what my next question was, because I was going to actually say, we are in the middle of this great ascension, and some people are very confused and don't know what's going on, and they don't know how to manage their life and what's coming next. And what advice would you have for anybody who's in that state of confusion? And I feel like that answer that you just gave was perfect for that. And so thank you for sharing that.
It is, but some real tools is to understand that as people's light turns on, literally the cellular light within their DNA starts to turn on, they find less and less things more tolerable. So it's not that all of a sudden things are worse than they were 100 years ago. It's just that the players have changed, the scenarios have changed, but everything's exactly the same. But we're seeing it with different eyes. And the more light that there is, the more shadows that we see, what was lurking in those shadows. And so we ourselves not are just looking around at what's going on, but we also have to look at ourselves and say, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't really like the way I respond. So we might have to do a little bit of shadow work on ourselves too.
Absolutely. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you both so much for joining us. We have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I feel like every talk we have, we just get that much more enlightened. And, you know, we're growing and growing as we go with these conversations. So thank you for your time and sharing all of your knowledge and your experience
Yeah.
with us. And congratulations on the new book. And people can get that on Amazon. We will be sure to put the links in the description of the video for where they can go to get the book. And I absolutely 100% recommend it, which I'm going to get it as well, because it sounds like it is packed full of great information. So if you're somebody that's going through this awakening process and you're confused, this I think is a must-have. So this will be, as you mentioned, sort of like a textbook as far as what to do and where to go next. And I know you both have both podcasts, YouTube channels, websites. We're going to put all of that in the description. But just before we wrap up, ladies, is there anything special that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I always like to let people know that you are so much more powerful than you've been told that you are. And having the memories that I have from the other side, I also want you to know that you are never, it is impossible for you to be alone. It is impossible. You are so surrounded, guided, guarded, and protected and loved that really just drop into that and accept that because it's real.
Oh, wonderful. And I would just like to add that there's so much more going on in this cosmos in reality than many, many humans have any awareness of. There's so many beings, so much consciousness, so much spiritual energy everywhere in the whole cosmos as well as here. And to open up to all that is a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you both so, so much. We are so privileged to have you join us today. And we just thank you and we honor you and we appreciate your time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you.